Well, good morning, fellow colleagues. My name is Jennifer Woolley. I am a third grade teacher here in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I have been teaching for 23 years. Uh, so I am here to present a little bit about the components of the 5 components of reading and some instructional strategies and resources you can use to help support your readers, writers, and spellers in your own classroom. So first of all, I just wanted to share a little graphic with you, which I thought was a great way to share how all the components of reading are interconnected. So when you think about the components of reading, we've got fluency, vocabulary, phonemic awareness, phonics, and on the outside circle, comprehension. So when we think about this, all of these work together to create that valuable reading experience for students. They must develop skills in all 5 areas to become that successful reader that is our goal for them. So first of all, I'm just going to share a little overview of each component. So as far as phonics, phonics is the connection between the sounds and the letter symbols. Um, it's the combination of those sound symbol connections that to create words. So in essence, that's what phonics is. So when we think about phonemic awareness and how that relates to phonics, it's closely related because they both involve the connection between sounds and words, but it's truly the understanding that words are created from phonemes, which are those small units of sounds. And those are, it's really the sounds only and those patterns within those words. Um, in our language. So it's more than just recognizing those words, phonemic awareness. It's more the ability to be able to hold on to those sounds and be able to pull them together and break them apart, which is blending and segmenting. So another component of reading would be fluency. So when we think about fluency, fluency is really just the ability of the reader to be able to read with speed, accuracy, and expression. So when I teach fluency, what I'm thinking about is this is kind of a good graphic. I think it keeps me on track. Thinking about the pace of the reading, the phrasing, the intonation or the expression, and punctuation. All of these are going to help you. Doing many lessons on all of those is going to help your reader be able to read smoothly, automatically, and with expression. So we know that readers need to be able to combine and use multiple skills at the same time. So that's why when teaching fluency, we want to address all those different components. We know that fluency is very closely tied to comprehension. When students have to work so hard to decode, they lack that ability to construct meaning from the text. So moving on to comprehension. So really comprehension is just the ability to have understanding and interpret what is being read. So in order to accurately understand the written material, kids have to be able to decode what they read. They have to be able to make connections with what they read and what they already know. So that's why when I shared earlier, comprehension, all the different components are tied closely with comprehension, okay? So when I think about comprehension as well, I think about vocabulary. What is vocabulary? We talk a lot about that. How do we introduce those skills to our students? Why is it important? So vocabulary is really plays a fundamental role in the reading process and is very critical to reading comprehension. Refers to the words that we know, um, words that we're able to read. Um, so in order to read words, kids must be able to know the words um, and have that prior knowledge and that background. So there's things we can do as teachers to support vocabulary. Um, So those are the 5 components of reading. So what I'd like to do is share some instructional strategies that you as teachers, reading specialists can incorporate into your own classroom with groups of students. So the first one that I have found successful is making words. Excuse me, I'm just going to grab I have some visuals because I'm a visual learner and I know that that is a powerful way for us to learn. So thinking about making words. So as far as a strategy for phonics, we're looking for patterns in words. Students have letter tiles. You could have the larger letter tiles up front. It's a way for you to manipulate and learn how to change one letter and build different words. We're constructing new words by manipulating and reordering the letters, using those meaning clues and phonics patterns to help make new words. So that is one strategy for phonics. Like I said, I have found very successful. It's very hands-on. The kids are engaged. So as far as phonemic awareness, to build that phonological awareness by segmenting words into individual sounds or phonemes, we're going to teach the students how to count the number of phonemes, which is the sounds, not necessarily the letters. Okay. So I think a really powerful tool, which is multisensory, it's tactile, is using Alconen boxes. So how this works is your students are given a word. We've got these boxes which segments the sound into the phonemes. Okay, so there's different ways that you can do this. I've used a string with different colors where the kids are stretching out the words and then putting them back together. So it's a real nice visual for students to help with better understanding of the alphabetic principle and decoding and spelling. So once again, it's breaking the words up into sounds, not necessarily letters, but then you are tying in the alphabetic principle as well. So those are Alconen boxes. So fluency, this is a large part of my classroom. I spend a lot of time on different strategies. So I had a really hard time choosing just one for you. So I thought we would talk a little bit about phrasing when it comes to teaching fluency. So to foster fluency in students, they need to know that reading involves not just reading, kind of like robot reading. We want them to know that reading is a set of words or phrases and not just those isolated words. So if you can build in some mini lessons on phrasing. So according to this, phrasing is the chunking of words together into meaningful phrases. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but if you look here, we're chunking that text, and that's how we're going to help our kids read a little bit smoother and kind of have that automaticity with reading those words. So one thing that you can do, once again, that I have found helpful among many other strategies, is I've used fluent phrasing and they're called sailboat phrases. So basically what happens is you are working with your students, you're reading one word, you're building on, and you're rereading those words to kind of build that fluency phrasing there. This is one thing you can do in a small group. You can model it whole group, but I found it most helpful for the kids who need that to be doing that in a small group. Along with that, this is something that my students I have taught in a small group that they can use in a center. It's called roll a phrase. So as you can see, these are all the Dolch sight word phrases put together into a template here. They roll the dice. They read however many it says. And it's just another way for them to practice those sight words and those phrases. So that is sight word phrasing, super important to build your students' fluency. Another thing that you can do kind of tied into that is just use some flashcards, and this can be done in a small group. They can do this in partners. I also have some graphs that we use so they can track their growth and how quickly they can read those and how smoothly they can read those. And the goal is for them to be able to read these phrases quickly, so when they're reading them in longer text, it promotes their fluency. So that is just a little instructional strategy on fluency. Moving on, comprehension is a huge part of my classroom, even with those beginning readers. And a strategy that I found super, super helpful and very engaging and hands-on for the students is using a retelling rope. So we know that students need to be you have to model these strategies for students. So what I'm going to show you is a book that I use called A Wolf's Favor. So what we did is I read the book, and my students have already had so many lessons about the different elements of a story. So I just have a little chart here. It says retell the story. And on here, I'm not sure if you can see that, but here's a rope with different knots in it. And each knot represents different elements of the story. So what we did is after we read it, I had a knot, and this is just kind of that scaffolding technique. You want to model this for them first. So you want to talk about who are the characters? What's the setting of the story? What's the problem? And then we move all the way down, different events, telling those in order. Another thing you can do as well, before I have them do any writing or anything on their own, I did copy some pictures of different elements of the story. We sequenced those together, kind of giving them that that support that they need, because eventually you want them to be able to do this while they're reading on their own. So a way that you can tie in writing is you can use story maps, graphic organizers to help them track their thinking. It's a super powerful tool for them to be able to organize their thoughts in a visual way. It's connecting that component of comprehension in there. It's connecting reading, writing and spelling. So as you can see here, it gives them opportunities. And I would do this with them first. And then the goal is for you, you're going to want to differentiate. You're going to have some readers that maybe are only going to be able to write a couple words. But this is a way for you to help them track that thinking and to tie in your lesson on the retelling rope. So once again, I have found this super helpful. And also you want to make sure that you're modeling this before you have them do it on their own. So hopefully with those anchor lessons and different mentor texts and authentic text, they're able to use the retelling rope on their own. To go along with that, I have sent these home with the students for them to share with their families, use when they're doing reading on their own. And I love it because you will see students actually moving their fingers down and holding it. They've got their little anchor chart here, which helps them remember which components to do. So that is just a strategy for comprehension. As far as vocabulary, I know this is quick, friends, but let me see if I can find my work here. So as far as vocabulary, I apologize. I have lost my sheets. Oh, goodness. Sorry about this, friends. Okay, so when we're thinking about vocabulary, I appreciate you being patient with me. It's basically the knowledge of words and word meanings, okay? So this is acquired through indirect exposure and explicit teaching. So when I think about ways to support students, you wanna have that rich context and authentic text, but what kids need help with, especially those younger readers or ELL or friends who are really struggling with vocabulary, is a strategy you can use are using different kind of semantic or concept maps. So this one kind of just ties in. You want to build that connection between words, and you're building that their prior knowledge into building that background knowledge for them. So in the middle, I'm not sure if you can see, here's your vocabulary word. Kids are drawing a picture. We're thinking of other related words that go along with that word. So this is something that I would encourage you to do together and to build that capacity for them to be able to do it on their own. And for younger readers, which I love, and you can use this on technology, is a great way for you to be able to incorporate this. So let's say my story, the theme, or if I'm social studies and science, transportation. Okay, we want to build that capacity for what kind of words do you know? Let's build in some new words. We're breaking this into different categories: land, water, air. And I like that the colors, it's very visual for the students. And you can do this together, but this is also going to build that connectedness between the spelling and the writing. So the goal is for vocabulary, we want to help students develop those connections among the words and increase the learning of those vocabulary words. And you want to be doing this all day long. If you can build those content words into different parts of your day, okay? Like I said, integrating technology with this, if your students have iPads, there are different programs where they can build their own semantic maps. I have found this very helpful for students when they are writing. They can take pictures of the maps that we've done together, and they can use those when they're responding to text or in different writing on their own. So that was kind of a quick overview of the different 5 components and just really small strategies you can do and build into your own classroom. Also, when we're thinking about progress monitoring and assessment, we know that we as teachers this needs to be an ongoing process. So building that baseline right away at the beginning of the year, when you think about assessment, I need to know where the kids are at, what they need, what their strengths are. There are lots and lots of different ways that you can keep track of your students' learning. So, excuse me. So when I think about progress monitoring, it's a way for teachers to know, one, are my students learning, and what can I do? What kind of instructional strategies are they working? What I've chosen, is it working for a particular group of students? Is it working for one student? So it's a way to get some feedback on my own teaching, your own teaching, and the strategies that you're using. So running records is one strategy for progress monitoring, which I find gives you a really good whole picture of the reader. The purpose is to kind of document that reading over time with your students. This one, you do not actually have a specified text. You can be using portions of text. You can be having them use their own book and using a template that looks similar to this. So I'm just doing a short kind of survey of their reading. I'm deciding what they need to learn. I'm making sure the books that they're reading are matching their level so it can build their skills. I need to know what kind of reading strategies they are using. So when you think about how we're monitoring their accuracy and their oral reading fluency and all the other strategies they use, um, there's different ways that you can track that. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about running records, I would do your research because it is very, very powerful in giving the teacher lots of valuable information about how to help those students grow and target those skills that you need to help support them. Another progress monitoring that I think is very effective would be using the curriculum-based measures, the CBM. Basically, this is tracking oral fluency. And the nice thing about these is you can gather different passages and you can get that baseline of where your kids are at. And basically what you want to do is you want to track their growth. And it depends on the needs of the student, how often you progress monitor. You have to decide that with your student individually. You know, I'm thinking 8-9 weeks, maybe doing one passage a week and tracking the growth, which you can track growth like this. So you've got the weeks along the bottom, words read correctly, and it kind of gives you a really good visual, and you can share these with the kids. Let's see how we're doing. Is what we're doing working? If not, then let's see if we can find a different strategy. So basically, CBMs, you have a passage, you're just tracking words correct. It's just another way for you to track their fluency. And once again, this one's going to have to be done one-on-one as well as a running record. So there's benefits, pros and cons to both. Those are just two different progress monitoring tools you can use. As far as online resources for you, I would highly recommend reading A to Z. I have found that the resources on here are everything that I really need. There's leveled books, there's leveled passages, you can tie it into the Common Core, there's decodable text for you, lots of lessons, vocabulary lessons, graphic organizers, really support for the teacher to meet the kids where they're at, and lots of readers theater, which can build that fluency, building that expression. You would need a subscription. So this is, if you do a little research and you find it would be something helpful, maybe reaching out to your reading specialist, your principal, and seeing if you can get a school subscription. So how can I help you as a reading specialist? How can I help the teachers? So I would love to go into your classroom and help you co-teach. We can co-plan together, modeling different strategies. Maybe it's one of these that you say, oh, it sounds interesting, but I'm not really sure how to implement that. That's my job. I would love to be able to come in and help support you in that way. My job as a reading specialist, I can also help you with learning how to progress monitor. What does it look like? What does it sound like? How do I track their growth? I can help you evaluate the data, get those kids into those reading groups that would support them. So that was just a quick overview of the different 5 components of reading, different instructional strategies, resources you can use. So hopefully that was a good start for you, and I wish you all the luck in supporting those readers in your classroom. Thank you.